Welcome to the podcast on the Sicha for Project Likutei Sichos, where we unpack the weekly Sicha of the Rebbe and bring its lessons into real life. I'm Rabbi Shmuli Nachlas from Toronto, Canada, joined by Rabbi Yisroel Wilhelm from Boulder, Colorado, and Rabbi Moshe Gourarie from Toms River, New Jersey. Every week, we explore the depth, relevance, and personal impact of the Rebbe's teachings. No fluff, just thought-provoking conversations, practical insights, and a fresh perspective on a timeless wisdom, timeless teachings. So grab a coffee, open your mind, and let's bring the Sicha home. L'chaim. Tonight, we are unpacking and learning and farbringing about the Sicha in Chelek Chavav. Look at the Sicha's Chelek Chavav, Beshalach Sicha Aleph. To set the table and open up for us, Yisroel Wilhelm. Yisroel, set the table for us.
So thank you very much, Shmuli. Sometimes when we have to, usually when you learn a Sicha, you have to sort of set the table and set up the stage. I think really that this is the kind of Sicha that I'm sort of demanding from the beginning that everybody who's listening to this podcast should really open up and learn it. It's a farbringen. It's really just amazing. The Rebbe speaks directly to so many of our attitudes in life about Yiddishkeit and about how to give up a little bit of yourself for somebody else. And it's many of the questions that we ask when we're doing good deeds and doing shluchas in any format, whether you're a formal shliach or not. The Rebbe really builds up on this Sicha. It's a beautiful lead up to Yud Shvat coming up this Shabbos, 75 years since the Rebbe's Nesias. I think that my first encouragement to those listening is make sure that sometime in the next few days you open up the Sicha and with your families, with your friends, and learn it, and you'll definitely have a more meaningful Yud Shvat. The Rebbe over here and I'll let Moshe really speak more about this, is trying to understand why the armory, the weapons that the Yidden took out of Mitzrayim were the bones of Yosef. And over there he explains, because that's what we see in the pasuk, that Atzmius Yosef is referring to the Atzmius of Yosef, to who Yosef's identity is. So with that, I'll pass it on to Moshe, who will explain. Yeah, please take it away. Go.
Okay. So, in very brief, because the Sicha, the Rebbe elaborates greatly, but in very brief, in order for the Yidden to go through the Midbar, to survive the spiritual dangers of the Midbar, of the desert, they need to take Yosef along with them, the essence of Yosef. And the essence of Yosef is the concept of, is based on his name, Yosef Hashem li ben Acher, where Rachel says, Hashem should give me another child. But the way the Rebbe explains it is that to transform the Acher, the one who may seem to be foreign, and to transform him into a ben, that he is the revealed child of Hashem. So this refers to ourselves as we go through the midbar of life. This refers to how we look at another Yid, that we have to, in order to survive the challenges of life, we have to recognize that ultimately within every person that we meet, within every challenge that we experience, beneath that there's the possibility to reveal the essence of that person and that person's relationship with Hashem, that he or she are Hashem's child. And there's more, but I'm gonna pause here for a second so we can unpack this concept that the key to surviving the desert of life is the recognition that every single person has the potential to be and is Hashem's child.
I mean, in the story that the Yidden were going through the Midbar, so the way the story unfolds is that there's the Anan, the cloud of glory that protects them, and the whole fact that Amalek started up with the Jews, started up with the people that were outside the Anan. The Anan was a physical protection; they were in a good situation, and a spiritual protection. So the protection that was really needed, and the strength that came to them traveling through the Midbar, traveling through their Golus, and obviously applicable to us in our Golus, was really the theme of that, and the theme of that experience was Yosef, was being able to take the bones of Yosef with them, because that was really what Yosef represented. Yosef was a child who was rich, who was powerful, who was in Mitzrayim, who was out in the secular world, who was doing business, and he was the one of all the Shvatim that was taking the Acher, taking the other, and turning it into a Ben. And this was the journey, the story that the Jewish people were about to experience, to go through a Midbar. You're about to go through a unique Golus. And how do you do it? And the actual recipe to do it is the carrying of Yosef. Yosef was a representation of the experience that we're about to experience, which is that we're in a situation where we see Acher, we see outside, we see Golus, we see challenges. And to be able to travel through that, we needed to have the Yosef. But there's an interesting thing, because maybe we should expand about it just a little bit. The people who were outside the Anan, how did they get there? Why were they there? Why were they disconnected from that spiritual protection? Why were they disconnected from the physical protection? Why were they outside the Anan? So the story is that they were spit out from the Anan because they weren't doing what they were supposed to. They had Sfeikus and Amunah. They weren't strong. They weren't doing what they're supposed to. They weren't doing Torah mitzvahs. And essentially what you have here is that when it came to fighting Amalek, the people in the Anan were instructed by Moshe, with the leadership of Yehoshua, a grandchild of descendant of Yosef, to leave the Anan, a place of protection, a safe place, spiritually and physically, and go out there and save them, and go out there and help them.
It's interesting to note that this Sicha is a compilation from Tafshin Chav Gimel, which is 1963, from Tafshin Lamed Ches, which is 1978, and from Tafshin Memhei, which is 1985. And I think that over the course of the years, various questions could have been brought up or were brought up on the concept of Shlichus and the concept of Mitzrayim. And in the Sicha, the Rebbe addresses them. Like, number one, why should I have to deal with those people who have made the choice, deliberately or not, to hang out outside of the cloud? Well, in the case of the Anan, they were expelled, but they were expelled sort of by choice. They made the choice to not be up to par. Why should I have to, so to speak, waste my time with them? The next question is, and I'm sort of breaking it into two separate questions, is what happens if I'm risking my spiritual standing, or even my physical standing, my safety, that is, my spiritual and physical safety? Why do I have to put myself at risk to help someone who is making the choice to not want to be helped? And then the third question is, what happens if I don't see any chances for a long-term results? I might have them for the moment. And so as we go through the Sicha, the Rebbe addresses each of these questions, that the message of Yosef teaches us that we have to recognize the value in every single Yid. Sometimes we have to risk our own standing for that Yid. And even if we don't believe or see the long-term results. I know I just touched on three different topics, but as you were saying what you were saying, Shmuli, I thought to myself that as it goes through the years, the Rebbe continuously addresses the questions, whether it's coming from within our own circles or whether it's coming from the outside world, that are asking the questions. Well, who ever heard of such a thing, that you take young couples and throw them out into the world and say, now go bring Yidden back? Or for that matter, even someone who's not a shliach, but someone who's going on Mitzrayim every Friday, and you're putting him out there, put on tefillin on a Yid, and you don't see results necessarily. And the question is, where are my results? Why should I put myself on the streets of Manhattan or whatever the street might be when I am putting myself in spiritual danger for no results, or for no visible results?
I'll take it just one step further. You have many people who have a shul in Crown Heights or in Toronto, and you make a shul and you make a kiddush, and someone comes for a cholent on Shabbos, and they come for the kiddush only or a little bit of kriyas hatayra, and you say to yourself, "What am I doing? What is the point? What do I need this for?" The guy didn't come back. He doesn't become a member around shul. He's not doesn't make any donations. He's not moving in his Yiddishkeit. What do I need this for? What's the whole headache for? What am I doing for? Never mind the risk spiritually. But what's the and you know what? The other thing that strikes me interesting is that here we are in 2025, and we're having this conversation. We're having this conversation in a world that recognizes the Chabad philosophy, the Chabad impact. We're in a different world than 1978 or 1985. I was a little kid then, but I still remember. I mean, growing up, I went for many years to school, Beis Yehuda school in Detroit, and the challenges to the Rebbe's attitude on Mitzrayim were unbelievable. I mean, today people forgot about that. But I remember,
Depends where.
It depends where. But I remember putting on tefillin. I was in grade 9 in Yeshiva Teres Mordechai of Greater Detroit with the custodian. And I remember the bombardment and the yelling and the halacha and the screaming. I mean, today something like that wouldn't happen because, Kiruv has become very popular. But the Rebbe is answering those questions. How do you do that? Why do you do that? So let's unpack them sort of one at a time. I mean, I guess let's just start, if it's okay, let's start at the beginning. Why is it right to do that? What is the justification to leave the Anon to go save someone on the outside of the Anon?
Look, so as somebody, we're all shluchim, and so for us, when we learn the Sicha, it's a very personal, and it's for me, obviously, raising my kids on a college campus, which is a place which is the total opposite of kedusha and anything. The total opposite of any kind of comfort place you'd want to raise a family, and including to be for me as a person, and when I was young, Shmuli, I was very idealistic. Went on shluchus. You didn't think about it because, like you said, the Rebbe shifted us a long time ago already. I think everybody who's a Lubavitcher, the Rebbe already shifted, into all these ideas. As one of my students, and I learned the Sicha with them, said, "Rabbi, this sounds like the 10 Commandments of Chabad." I said, "Yeah, this is like exactly. This is Basi Lagani. This is Atika Vayikra Vayakri. This is our basic. Everybody who's a Lubavitcher knows this from the education that we receive in our moistus. But as you get older, if I'm honest for a minute, there's moments that you're like, what am I doing here? In other words, I mean, don't get me wrong, it's a beautiful place to live. You can ski, it's gorgeous mountains, Colorado. But like, you go back sometimes and you see the reality of what it means to be a Frumayid, and have a minyan 3 times a day and have those abilities of just, and you stop and say to yourself, like, Shmuli, Moshe, I would love to learn more. We've been talking about Fabregan for a long time, learning a Sicha, just being able to,
Go back to Yeshiva for a few years.
Yeah, and how many times let's go this week, we'll go learn together. And ultimately you learn the Sicha, and the Rebbe, you go back to the olive base of Basi Lagani, and the Rebbe sat with his chassidim and said, guys, you got to put yourselves aside. I'm sorry. I know you guys want, you want good. You want to have ruchnias. I mean, we're not talking about good guy. You mean well, and it's not easy, and it's talking not easy. But you got to put your ego aside. You got to put yourself aside for another yid, and that's what it's all about. For another yid's gashmias, for his physical, for if you can help him in a certain way, and for another yid's ruchnias, and that ability to leave your comfort zone. I know we take it so for granted, as you said. It's like, so our kids don't even know that it's novel anymore. It's lost its novelty. But to me, it's still novel when I hear the places young people go on shluchas to. And it's still crazy, like ad kedei kach, like to that point. Or when I hear young galait who are not shluchim, and all the time, and they're just working and they're not doing official mitzvahim, but like a Lubavitcher, however, whatever kind of Lubavitcher he considers himself. He's on vacation somewhere, and he's suddenly, my students are sending me pictures, and they're taking, on vacation somewhere, and who's putting on tefillin on them, or who's giving them Shabbos candles, or who's just, teaching them something. That's what we're trained to do, to get out of our comfort zone. And even when we're on vacation with our family and it's comfortable, you have a few minutes for another Jew. But
the question is why. The question is why.
Shmuli, I want to go back to that question, but you said to go back to the beginning. I want to go to the end. I think when you go to the end of the Sicha, it answers all the questions. And the answer is that ultimately, every time that we invest ourselves in helping another Yid, from the whether we see it or not, it's actually having an impact. It's actually helping. It's I'm quoting the Sicha, even though we didn't talk about the Sicha part, but Sai, the person that risked his own ruchnius, his own spirituality, his own safety, and as well as the person to whom you're reaching out, who you saw as the danger or who was in the dangerous space. Ultimately, the truth is that you will both be helped. You will both grow. And therefore, if you were to look at from your limited perspective and say, how could I risk my Yiddishkeit? It's a chassid shaita. You're looking, you're looking at something from such a limited perspective instead of looking at it from the Eibishter's perspective.
But hold on. I'm sorry. It's not, and correct me if I'm wrong. It's not that you're going to grow because of it. There's a situation of pikuach nefesh. There's a situation.
So the reason I mentioned the growth is because in the end of the Sicha, the Rebbe says, that's a
bracha. That's
fringe
a
benefit. Absolutely.
That's a fringe benefit. That's a fringe benefit. But what we're talking about here is pikuach nefesh, and the analogy the Rebbe gives is somebody who's drowning. And when you're saving someone who's drowning, and when you're helping someone who's drowning as a good person, as a chassid, you're not thinking about the outcome of what's going to be and how's it going to be and who's going to save and how's going to save, and if it's a man or a woman or a male or a female or a child, a boy, a girl. That's not the calculation. So the moment we connect with that mission and the moment we connect with that sense of urgency and responsibility, then it's not about what will be from that person or who is that person or why is he worth that I should spend my time and how important I am and what will be with me. It's a lifestyle. It's a lifestyle of doing, and it's really a focus on the action and the frame of mind of who we are and where we are versus where we're going. Very often in large organizations, before they run a campaign, they're looking at the return and what's the. I'll share a story. There was somebody here some 10 years ago that had a program, another organization that had a program in a high school, and my focus is with high school teens. And I bumped into him. We were schmoozing, and he said to me, they're closing down this program that they were doing in high schools. So I said, why? So he said they did a study, and they saw that not so many girls or boys from the public school ended up going to yeshiva, ended up going to Israel, ended up, anything becoming of them. And the investment of time and energy and money, it just wasn't worth it. And, they're shutting down the program. And I remember sitting with him for an hour saying to him, what are you talking about? Like, how does that make any sense? How do you know what you're doing? Whose measuring sticks are you using? Like, what do you even know? Baruch Hashem, they kept the program, at least as far as I know, for quite a while. But this idea that reaching out is because of what the results are going to be, and you could go start measuring them. This is the alma mater of Miftaim. This is really the idea. The question, of course, is why is this one person coming to Shul on Shabbos to eat shalom? Why am I putting on tefillin with this guy? He's never going to put on tefillin again in his life. So what's the point? What am I doing? What am I accomplishing? And the Rebbe references mitzvah malashon tzavsa v'chibur, connection. It's almost like I just have to share like a thought that comes to my mind. It's like if there's somebody who hasn't eaten in 2 weeks and they knock on your door, and You could feed them. You could give them a meal. You could give them $20 to go buy a meal. Are you going to save their life? Are you going to change their life forever? No. Do we think that way? The guy's hungry. He's starving. You give him a meal because that's what you do. That's what you do right now. He's hungry. It's pikuach nefesh. If you don't give him a meal right now, what's going to happen? Are you going to make a calculation who's going to feed him tomorrow? Who's going to feed him the next day?
The Rebbe makes actually 3 points to answer the question. Point number 1 is every mitzvah counts because every mitzvah tips the scale. So before looking at the value of the mitzvah for the person or the very fact that a yid does a mitzvah, it makes a difference. So that's point number 1. Point number 2 is tzavsa v'chibur, that by doing this mitzvah, the yid who you're doing the mitzvah with is being connected to Hashem. Point number 3 is v'hayahu shmirasa yiyah, that just because you can't see the value of your action or the long-term return doesn't mean that the return isn't there. It's like when I've learned to the Sicha the first few times, it looked like it was all flowing one into the other. But then if you slow down for a moment, it's 3 different nekudas, because there could be 3 different situations that each one gets answered by a different one of these questions, by one of these answers. Either you could say mitzvah achas, one mitzvah. The power of a mitzvah is it could change the world. Number 2, for this specific individual, a mitzvah connects him to the Eibishter. Like the Rebbe always said about a kakafta. A person that never put on tefillin, chas v'shalom, and then one time he put on tefillin, you've now transformed his entire life. You've now connected him to Hashem. Now when he goes after 120, it's a skull that has worn tefillin. And then the Rebbe sort of talks not so much to the person that's doing the mitzvah, but to the person that is reaching out and saying, don't get stuck on your a limited vision of the result of what you're doing.
I mean, look, to me, this whole conversation is a very foundational conversation, a very personal conversation as a campus rabbi, and where, thank God we have hundreds and hundreds and hundreds of students, and you have no idea, like literally live in a world of, if it's a result-oriented business, there's no measuring tape, not to this way or that way. And it's really a sicha that is like Pasi Lagani. It's a foundational to anybody who's daring to go down that road. But ultimately, what does the Rebbe want from us? And what's Rebbe demanding from us is to put our ego aside and to really, the second you're thinking about what have I accomplished, how has it affected, it's about making yourself feel good. And that got to be put aside because it's really not about you. And that's not what Yiddishkeit's about. And that's not what Chassidus was given to us for. And and there's many, many times when you're in this business that it doesn't feel good. And it's you have no idea what you did. And that's okay. And you still got to truck on because the main thing is to get to work. But from Basi Lagani until every sicha, this sicha is like, you just have to learn it. Just do it. Stop thinking about yourself. Stop thinking about how it will make you feel. Stop thinking about how it potentially brings certain results. Just do what the Eibishter wants and let go. And that's it. And how many stories do we each have? Each one of us. I mean, we can spend hours over here, each one of us, with this how we thought this, and we have no clue, but it all comes. Are we ready to put? And it's very hard. We can talk about it to make it sound like it's easy. Let's be honest. There's moments that it's hard because we are human beings and we want to see things. And this sicha pushes us and reminds us it's okay.
What I'm just going to do now for the benefit of the listeners is just to give 2 minutes or 3 minutes from the actual Sicha and sort of everything that we're talking about, how we see it in the words of the Sicha. And I'm going to focus more on the second part of the Sicha, where the Rebbe talks about the fact that the month of Shvat, every month has a combination of the letters Yud Kei Vav Kei, and according to Kabbalah, the month of Shvat the Yud Kei Vav Kei is Hamer Yimirenu V'Hayahu, which is a reference to the mitzvah to not swap an animal that was already contributed to the Beis Hamikdash. But if you do, then the first animal and the second animal both become holy. So the Rebbe says that initially it says Lo Yimirenu, which means that if everything was perfect, then the person, in this case, the person that is in the space of Torah mitzvahs, within the walls of the yeshiva, does not have to change his own place and go out into the world. But if there's a situation where he's needed, then Hamer Yimirenu, he should change his location. He should go out of his safe space, the yeshiva, the shul, and go into the world. And then, even though he's concerned that it's going to affect him negatively, V'Haya means that it remains, that he will retain his holiness. Who, which sounds like something abstract, refers to the Acher, refers to the one who seems foreign. Both of them, Ushmurasa Yiyah Kodesh, both of them will retain and will grow in their holiness. And the Rebbe points out that the words Ushmurasa Yiyah Kodesh are not in the acronym of Yud Kei Vav Kei, because we don't always get to see the result. We don't always get to see that holiness. I'm just giving a brief synopsis of the Sicha, where you see this message of the Rebbe to us in the words of this pasuk and in the words of the Sicha. And now, as we near our time limit, let's talk about Yud Shvat.
Yeah, I mean, just to go back to this point, it's such a powerful point that when it comes to doing what we do and being a chassid, like Yisroel was saying, there's a certain, I'm going to say hanacha, but there's a certain just approach in being comfortable knowing you're doing the right thing. And not negating results, because results are important, of course, but that's not the driving force. In typical business, there's certain measurements, how much should you make? What does the books look like? And on and on and on. But there's a certain simplicity to submit yourself to knowing that I'm doing the right thing. I'm putting on tefillin with a yid. That's what I'm here to do. I'm a lifeguard. I'm here to save lives. I pull them out. What's going to be with this person? Where they're going to go? What they're going to do? It's not about, it reminds me, for me, this Sicha really epitomizes like the mission statement for me of everything, with all my engagement. I remember when I started 23 years ago and I moved to Toronto, a bunch of people said to me, you're starting with youth. There's a certain individual, you have to call him. He's been involved with youth for 50 years. Very influential person, did a lot of good work with youth. And I remember sitting in my office, and probably one of the first phone calls, a very humbling experience. I called him up. I was very nervous about calling him. And I said, I'm all excited. I'm just on shlichus, and I'm going to change the world, and I'm going to get teens, and I'm going to do, all my dreams and everything else. And after I finished my speech, I said, do you have any tips for me? Do you have any ideas? Do you have any thoughts? And he said, I remember his words still today. He says to me, you're not going to be successful. I was like, why? What are you talking about? He says, because we have the numbers. That was the end of the conversation. And I remember hanging up the phone and saying to myself, I'll be successful and I'll have the numbers. But more importantly, that is not the measure of success. Like, it was such a defining moment right in the beginning of my shlichus. Like that, no, you got it all wrong, buddy.
Beautiful. I want to pivot just a drop before we hit our time limits, and that is the Rebbe is speaking about outreach. I mean, outreach is the wrong word, but the Rebbe is speaking about reaching out to other Yidden. But I think there's another nekuda, and that is that as we look at 75 years of the Rebbe's Chassidim, the Rebbe's Chassidim look very, very, very different from each other. There are chassidim with long white beards. There are chassidim with black yarmulkes, with colorful yarmulkes. There are chassidim that dress like this, chassidim that dress like that, chassidim that do this, and chassidim that do that. And since it is Yud Shvat, and Rebbe on Yud Shvat gave us the mission statement to bring the Shechina into this world and to bring the Geula. This is the last generation of Galus and the first generation of Geula. And a person might say to themselves, the Rebbe didn't mean me. The Rebbe meant the people that were there then, or the people that are, the leaders. And the Rebbe says in the Sicha, there's no such thing as an acher. Sometimes we think of ourselves, I'm not inside. It was mentioned before that everybody has what's inside the cloud, what's outside of the cloud. Anybody could think to themselves, I don't know, am I in? Am I out? Where am I? And the Rebbe says that every single Yid is a Ben. And therefore, when the Rebbe gave the mission to us, to bring the Shechina into this world, and to bring the Geula, though no one ever thought it would take this long. But regardless, we're coming to Yud Shvat at 75 years. We're carrying on the Rebbe's mission to change the world. And the Rebbe in this Sicha is telling us that nobody should ever think of themselves just because they didn't live up to someone else's expectation of them, or someone else's version of how they should look, or how they should dress, or how they should act. Every single Yid is a Ben of the Eibishter of Avinu Shebashamayim. And every single, from the Rebbe's glasses, from the Rebbe's eyes, every single Yid is the Eibishter's child and has the infinite potential. The Chelek mimal, the banim atem laHashem lekechem, to literally to change their own life and to change the world and to bring Mashiach. And we're sitting a few days before Yud Shvat. Besides the all the message about shlichus and mitzvayim and kiruv halavavis that the Sicha tells us, let's look at ourselves for a second and let's remind ourselves that every single one of us is a ben, is a b'nai yechidi of the Eibishter, and we can do this.
I'll just add to that, as Yisroel come over to you as I'm talking too much, but I'll just add to you that in this context, we bring it back to ourselves, because it's easy to talk about somebody else. It's easy to talk about our shlichus. It's easy to talk about our mitzvayim and the person we're putting on tefillin with. But just to bring that point home, there's the acher inside of us, which means there's the times in our life or the moments in our life when we're fully engrossed in galus, in whatever it is that we're doing, whether we have to or whether by choice or by choice, like we mentioned earlier. And how do you fix that paradox of my acher? I look at all the things that I do. Look at all the things that I'm involved with. Look at my, I don't know, all the complexities of my imperfections.
My Google history,
whatever it may be, yeah, etc. So yeah, of course we should be better. Yeah, of course we have to learn more Torah and do more mitzvahs. But I think that the lesson, if you want to take it home to yourself, and obviously the same lesson applies outward, is that cheshbonus, making those calculations, are really detriment to bringing yourself in. And the bottom line is, right now, it's not a time to ask yourself all these questions, because you're just convoluting your mind and you're just wasting time. Just get the job done. Do the mitzvah, put on tefillin, learn chassidus, learn Likutei Sichos, do whatever it is. Go to the Farbrengen, go to Yud Shvat, go to the oil, go and do. You're going to say, I'm an acher. Okay, you have some acher. There's acher. Yosef li ben acher. But you're a ben. And the ben has the ability to pull the acher in. So don't get all fussed up about the whole situation. Settle down. And it's the same attitude we have with the other people. Why can't we have the attitude with ourselves? That's what we go. We see a guy, we put on tefillin with him. We don't. So we have that. We know we've been indoctrinated for so many years, and all the learning that you get that guy for that one tefillin. It's amazing. What about your one tefillin? What about your one sicha? What about your one learning? What about your moment of davening today? You're going to say, what's it worth? It's not worth anything. Why should I do it? I know what kind of guy I am. I know my machshavas zaros. I know I know my problems. I know my challenges. Okay. But you're a ben.
So I'll add to that, because you're both really, I don't have much to add. One ending, to say the ending, is that yes, agree to everything you said, but as a chassid of the Rebbe, the best way to grow and the best way to be Vayikra The best way is to learn to be able to be active through action is through helping another yid. And that was the Rebbe's solution to all the problems, is that when you are down and when you're not sure who you are, and as Moshe said, you're wearing whatever, you're being judged by other people and be decided, no problem. But go find an acher, go find somebody else who you consider an acher, or the opportunity that's put in front of you. And being that Tevat of the Hativ, and Hashem only gives us good, at the end of the Sicha, the Rebbe says, true, you'll do it through sacrifice, and it won't be easy, and that's not why you're doing it. But Hashem will give you all the brachas, and tremendous brachas. And at the end, what I found so beautiful is that the Makim Shabbat Tshuva Oimdim, I feel tzaddikim murim einich lamid by. The Rebbe says vet ufkatan oich by the shulchan. That even the people, in other words, even if you weren't the person who was involved in what the acher was involved with, through helping them, you'll become great as well. So never forget that as a chassid of the Rebbe, you owe it to look out for another Jew in whatever ability you have. L'chaim, my friends, it's your Shvat in a few days, and Shmuli, you want to say something?
Yeah, we're not done yet. We're not done yet.
Oh,
We're almost done.
I thought we're done. Done, okay.
There's a point in the Sicha where the Rebbe says Besignan Acher, which basically means, let me say it to you very, very clearly. Just back to that
Besignan Bar.
Sorry, Besignan Bar, which basically says, let me spell it out for you. And the Rebbe basically says that the shluchus, our shluchus, is to do. What the impact will be, what the results are, it's not necessarily. There's a concept in healthy business, in healthy boundaries, in healthy relationships, of staying in your lane, knowing what you're good at, knowing what you have to do, and over worrying about what everything else. It's simply not your job. It actually is more comforting to know that it's not your job. Then you could do what your job is with a lot more ease, and you don't have to worry about it. I'm going to share with you a hergish because we're farbringing, and I hope it's okay. But for many years, I had the opportunity to bring buses of kids, to bring them to the Rebbe. And I remember going by dollars and seeing people bring groups to the Rebbe. And one thing that just stuck in my mind from there, which I sort of learned from and applied to myself, which is really emphasized in these words, was I remember seeing people bring, their balbatim, their friends, their this, their that from their community, and bring them to the Rebbe by dollars. And they would introduce them. This is so-and-so and so-and-so, and whatever they would do, or whoever they are, and sort of say, here you are. And that's it. And now what? Now nothing. Now they're standing in front of the Rebbe, and it's the Rebbe. Now they did their thing. They brought them to the Rebbe. What happens now? It's the Rebbe's business. It's not your problem. And I always just applied that for myself when I bring teens to the oil, and I bring teens to the Rebbe, and we have amazing experiences. But after that is accomplished, I feel like literally every time, like a weight off my shoulder. Like I've done my thing. Now what's going to happen? What are they going to do? I'm very comfortable knowing that the Rebbe could do a good job at what the Rebbe does. I stay in my lane. I've done my work. I've done my work. I brought them here. Now the Rebbe will do his magic. So it's actually an amazing state of mind to be able to stay in your lane, to be comfortable knowing that what you're doing is the right thing. This is what the Rebbe wants us to do, and the simplicity of this unique approach, which is a phenomenal kind of industry where it's so results driven because it's not results driven. It's true. It's not a means to an end. The end of itself is the tzafs of a chibur. The end of its own is to do another person a favor. The end of its own is to help another person. And when you have that approach, the whole world opens up. The brachas are flowing. The Torah mitzvahs, of course, everything is going to be good because you're sincere. You're there. You're doing it not because of that. So everything else will flow from there. And I just had to share that point. Now we could circle it around. Rabbi Moshe, share with us your final thoughts there.
No, these are these are my final thoughts. It's out of Yud Shvat. The Rebbe empowered us. The Rebbe trusts us, and the Rebbe set it out very, very clearly what the mission of the generation is, and the fact that we have to have a clarity as to what our abilities are, not our abilities to see results in, but our abilities to do. We have to find how we could be the best version of ourselves, both in our own personal growth as well as on influencing others, whether it's in English or in Yiddish, whether it's Tanya or whether it's Likutei Sichos, or whether it's bringing people to New York, to the Rebbe, to the whatever it is that we could make a difference. We have to do it, and we don't have time. You said this very well, Shmuli. We don't have time to second guess ourselves. We can, after Mashiach will come, then we could second guess ourselves, and we can figure out if we did it right. They could have done it differently. Right now, we have to keep on doing. Is what was do. Keep on doing this. The Rebbe trained us and trains us and teaches us. Just keep on doing what you're doing, and safe hakavid lovey.
Yisroel, final thought.
I'm listening to Moshe speak. It's been a very rough week for the family of Shluchim. A terrible tragedy in New Jersey, and and there's a lot of questions, and the question about the Moshe keeps getting stronger, but we know what we have to do. We got to get to work, and that's the bottom line. When you learn the Sicha, you walk away, and you have there's. Not that it's not painful, and not that it's not hard, and not that not that we have answers, we have nothing, and because we don't. So what we do know is let's get to work, and let's bring Mashiach, because that's all we have,
to go back to the beginning of the Sicha, we're still in a midbar. We're in the midbar, and the only thing we have with us is Atzmas Yosef.
Yeah, and that's it. And then when we have that attitude, we'll somehow get through it all, by hook or by crook. And the Mitzvah Shem, we should take a merit to see the revelation of Geula of Mashiach, speedily. L'chaim.
L'chaim. L'chaim. Thank you for joining us. We'll see you all next week.
Thank you.